I'd just like to welcome everybody to this webinar today. We're going to be talking about several different topics around the AWS funding mechanism, specifically around AWS funding for new airlines that are new to AWS. We're also going to be talking about AWS funding for airlines in that growth and emerging phase. And then finally, we're going to be talking as well about AWS funding for airlines in the mature stage within AWS itself. I'm going to do a quick round of introductions, and then we're going to jump properly into the actual webinar itself. My name is John Power. I'm Chief Product Officer of Mock. Stuart, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Stuart Heaton. I'm head of the AWS Alliance for Amok.
Brian?
Yeah, Brian Madden. I'm the AWS Practice Lead, which is essentially Principal Solution Architect.
Kevin?
Kevin Webb. I'm the AWS Business Development Lead at Ingram Micro, distributor for AWS, supporting the guys at Amok here this afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. Okay, Stuart, over to you, buddy.
So just a little bit of introduction then. So in terms of Amok and who we are, we're an AWS Advanced Partner. We are an aviation specialist, and we've worked with customers such as Aer Lingus, British Airways, TAP Air Portugal, Air New Zealand, and others to help them deliver innovation in the AWS cloud. More widely, the global cloud aviation market was valued around 5.6 billion in 2023, and it's expected to reach more than 3 times that by 2031. So this represents a huge shift in a few short years. And when we talk to customers across the industry, some of the main adoption drivers that we hear about are things like gaining data insights. So in aviation specifically, in areas like fuel efficiency and crew management, in retailing, personalization, and in loyalty programs. Enabling operational efficiencies is another one we hear a lot of. So predictive maintenance, health and safety, dealing with irregular operations caused by weather events, and so on. And improving customer experience. So allowing customers to interact with an airline across multiple channels in a way that suits them and suits their lifestyle. But when we talk to customers, often we hear that a high initial cost and integration challenges of implementing cloud solutions can be major barriers to adoption. And often these customers aren't fully aware of the partner funding programs AWS has made available to us as a partner to help mitigate these challenges. So over the next sort of 20 minutes or so, we'll be delving a little deeper into each of these and showing you how you can take advantage of the incentives. We'll be explaining the 3 major funding programs, how they operate, how they align with customer workloads in different stages of their journey, and how they support more complex workloads. So to kick it off then, I think, let's look at it from the point of view of an airline customer with no production workloads in AWS. Perhaps they are fully on-prem or with some workloads on other clouds, but want to experiment and take advantage of the broad set of services and the deep functionality that AWS offers. So in those circumstances, Brian, where would you recommend a customer starts?
Thanks, Stuart. Knowing where to start with AWS migration always seems daunting. Hundreds, if not thousands, of enterprises, including many airlines, have embarked on this journey already, so you will not be the first mover. Their success has been down to working with the right partner and leveraging available AWS programs. For those airlines just starting out, there are 2 different routes available, depending on what you're looking to achieve. If you're considering migrating multiple workloads, then the starting point should be leveraging one OLA. On the other hand, if you want to determine what AWS offers, then proof of concept funding is going to appeal to you more. Kevin, for an airline with legacy applications hosted in data centers, what is one OLA and what benefit will it offer to the airline?
Thanks, Brian. That's a great question. So customers who go it alone and without the support of a partner like Amok often struggle with optimizing legacy workloads and face complex licensing obligations when considering Amazon Web Services. It can be quite daunting at first glance. This often results in a higher TCO, clearly not the intention of a cloud migration. But by working with a highly skilled partner, to migrate enterprise workloads like, for example, Microsoft, VMware, Oracle, or SAP into the AWS cloud, organizations across the globe are maximizing price to performance and reaping the benefits of modernization. The Optimization and Licensing Assessment Program, often referred to as 1OLA, helps businesses assess and optimize their current on-prem environments and other cloud environments based on actual resources, utilization, and third-party licensing concerns. This allows partners to build a migration and the licensing strategy to help customers, to prove to customers the business case for change, and to unlock those cost savings by transitioning to AWS. The assessment itself is fully funded by AWS and requires almost no effort on behalf of the customer. It allows us to determine prospective workloads to optimize and collect utilization data for these workloads using either the AWS Migration Evaluator toolset or some very powerful third-party ISV tooling. The output from the evaluator allows us to analyze and review licensing data to model cost and optimization scenarios. But once complete, AMAC will review this assessment results with you to build the business case for change and to start a migration and/or a proof of concept. This is a process that we execute daily with our partners right across EMEA. I guess the next question is, why then do so many customers choose to migrate to AWS? When evaluating the decision to migrate to the cloud, organizations often consider several key factors that can shape their cloud adoption strategy. Firstly, infrastructure cost savings. Due to the highly scalable and on-demand nature of the AWS cloud, organizations can achieve up to 66% in infrastructure cost savings compared to traditional on-premise environments. This is achieved through the ability to right-size resources, eliminate the need for upfront capital expenditures, and benefiting from AWS's sheer economy of scale. Secondly is the reduction in licenses required. Migrating to the cloud can help organizations optimize software licensing costs. The global data AWS hold indicates that organizations can experience up to 77% reduction in the licenses required after moving to AWS, which is particularly beneficial for enterprises with complex on-premise software licensing models. Next is the faster time to market for new features. The agility and the flexibility of AWS offerings enable organizations to deploy new features and functionalities rapidly. On average, migrating to AWS can result in a 43% reduction in the time it takes to bring new features to market, allowing enterprises to respond more quickly to changing business requirements and customer needs. Most organizations report an increase in staff focus on innovation after migrating to AWS. By offloading the operational overhead of managing infrastructure and IT resources, organizations see a shift in their staff's focus towards more strategic and innovative initiatives. The global data AWS holds indicates a 29% increase in the time spent on innovation, which can drive competitive advantage and business growth. Finally, fewer security-related incidents. Leveraging the robust capabilities and the compliance features of the AWS cloud platform can help organizations reduce the number of security-related incidents by up to 45%. This enhanced security posture can provide peace of mind and reduce the risks associated with on-prem deployments. These quantifiable benefits illustrate why organizations are increasingly choosing to migrate their workloads to the AWS cloud, as it can drive significant improvements in their operational efficiency, cost optimization, and innovation capabilities. And the simplest way to start this journey is by working with the team here at AMAC to book a vendor-funded assessment for your environment. We can then look at on-prem to cloud, Oracle to AWS, VMware is an interesting topic to open, RDS or SAP workloads, or even cloud to cloud, covering all of the hyperscalers. So the assessment is the way to begin this process. Brian, back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And just picking up on one of the metrics there that you mentioned, organizations seeing a 29% increase in time spent on innovation. And to cover that, AWS have a proof of concept funding program, which is designed to assist partners help airlines in evaluating the feasibility and effectiveness of deploying solutions on AWS. By offering financial support and technical resources, AWS aims to reduce the risks associated with cloud adoption and encourage this innovation. They will provide funding to offset costs associated with developing and testing POCs. The funding typically covers up to 10% of the anticipated first-year annual recurring revenue. This is just a fancy term for all your monthly AWS bills in the first year from the workload, with a maximum limit of $25,000. You also get access to aviation expertise when it matters through Amok's SMEs, ensuring that POCs are built following best practices and are aligned with business objectives. The program supports a wide range of workloads, allowing businesses to explore various AWS services. By conducting a POC, airlines can identify potential challenges and validate solutions in a controlled environment before committing to full-scale implementation. Amok has used POC funding several times, and recently we've used it for one of our airline customer services teams that needed to streamline responses to passenger inquiries, reduce call times, and improve the overall passenger experience. They approached Amok for guidance, and we recommended a solution based on functional conversational AI. We went with a proof of value which emphasizes AWS's fail fast principle, which is quick validation, ensuring resources are not wasted on ideas that won't scale or deliver value to an airline. Our team worked with the client to devise a high-level project plan and associated architecture, which was submitted to AWS for the POC funding. The funding from AWS included a contribution towards our professional services fee, as well as AWS credits to offset the cost of the new services. Our SMEs implemented a Gen AI powered assistant and applied it to one customer journey. At the end of the project, we were able to demonstrate the following value to the client: 15% cost reduction in the cost to serve for this one customer journey. The average handle time was reduced by 10%. We also saw a reduction of repeat calls by 10%, and the client also saw their first call reduction improved by 7 percentage points. With these metrics and benefits, the stakeholders were then able to go to their senior leadership teams for business approval and funding for full rollout across all customer journeys. So just quick reminder, the two funding programs here are one OLA, which is a funded assessment for workloads you're considering migrating. And also we have proof of concept funding for innovation projects up to $25,000. I think that's good time for me to pause and check with John to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, there's probably, just to add on top of that, Brian, some really good stats there. So as part of this example that Brian was using there, we talked to proof of concept, we talked about one customer journey, and you might say, well, 10% saving in average handling time. That is over a period of 6 weeks. Okay, if you think about rolling that over 12 months, those efficiencies quadruple in relation to how you can improve either average handling time or first call resolution or customer satisfaction. And that is more likely the sort of savings and efficiencies you can get over a period of 12 months. So it's really important to remember the emerging elements of these airlines that are only beginning to start with AWS can put their toe in the water to see, how does it work for me? The first question the airlines need to ask themselves is, what KPI do I want to affect? Okay, so for the attendees that are here today, sometimes it could be a cost efficient KPI you want to hit. In other words, you want to reduce licenses in relation to a proprietary company, or you want to increase customer satisfaction. That's where you start. If you start with what KPIs do I want to affect in the company, we can reverse engineer a POC for you to ensure that you get a business case to be able to establish the budget to be able to push forward. That's the first thing. There is a question coming in here, and I'm just going to read it out here. What AWS services and solutions can the funding be applied to, and are there any restrictions? I think that's the important bit.
Yeah, so great question. So the first requirement is you must go through an AWS partner like Amok for both of these programs. We will do the application on behalf of the airline. So that's step number one. For one OLA, there is a requirement that the target workload in AWS will generate at a minimum $50,000 in annual recurring revenue. And then in the proof of concept, their only restriction is it cannot be used with what AWS call preview services. So these are newly announced services that haven't been globally rolled out. They're in a testing phase, but every other generally available product is open for proof of concept funding.
Great answer. And I think to me, it's a question of why you wouldn't do this if I was thinking of embarking on this particular stage, because the work is taking off you. In other words, a mock will actually do all of the paperwork and it doesn't cost you anything to get started in relation to this particular element itself. I've got a few more questions coming in, Stuart, but I'm just conscious of time. Can I throw it back to you? Because I want to move into the midsection airlines.
Yeah, sure. So look, we covered off one OLA and POC there. So 2 funding programs for airlines who are early on the journey into AWS. But what we actually come across more often are organizations that are past that point and they're looking to adopt AWS at scale and how you solve that particular puzzle. So turn it back to Brian again. So tell us, Brian, if you can, a little bit more about those airlines who are kind of moved on a little and they're looking to adopt AWS in a scaled manner.
Cool, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, so for airlines that are looking to migrate at least several workloads or applications, then MAP will benefit them. The AWS Migration Acceleration Program is a structured framework designed to help airlines migrate to AWS efficiently, minimize risks, and access funding for both migration and modernization. It provides technical guidance, financial incentives, and access to a MOC's expertise to ensure a smooth and successful cloud journey. MAP is built around 3 core pillars that ensure a successful and cost-effective migration. The first pillar is assess, where a MOC evaluates an airline's cloud readiness based on AWS's cloud adoption framework. Here we aim to identify gaps, risks, and opportunities for migration. A MOC will build the business case for migration, which includes a total cost of ownership analysis. The next phase is mobilize, which is where we develop a migration plan and develop the AWS landing zone to test workloads in AWS. Our SMEs will work with an airline's product owners to categorize applications based on the 7 R's of migration. These are rehost, replatform, refactor, repurchase, retain, and everyone's lovely favorite, retire. We will ensure an airline establishes a cloud center of excellence to streamline cloud adoption, which is required to ensure the success of the last pillar, migrate and modernize. In the migrate and modernize, this is where we'll actually execute the migration using AWS automation tools. There are specific tools for various workloads, such as mainframe, server migration, or those pesky databases. Optimize workloads with cloud-native services, such as serverless, AI, ML, and containerization. We'll also implement security, governance, and cost optimization best practices to set you up for future success. An airline that a MOC has helped migrate to AWS has achieved over 4 million in productivity savings. They've avoided having to pay millions to modernize their data centers and have achieved over 10 million in incident avoidance. So Kevin, assuming an airline has completed the 1 OLA assessment and it has shown infrastructure and licensing cost savings that show value or return on investment for moving to AWS, what funding incentives are available through MAP that will reduce the financial risk to the client, to the airline in adopting cloud?
Thanks, Brian. Great question. And just to reiterate some of the things that you said, right? So the Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP as it's referred to, it's a very comprehensive and proven cloud migration program that's the result of AWS's experience over many years. And it's helped thousands of customers migrate in a cost-effective way to AWS. MAP is an agile-based migration methodology that uses automation tools and provides financial investment and funding to help customers There's also MAP partner funding available too, and this slide here demonstrates some of the range of those funding motions. Even from the smallest of migrations that could be a few $1,000s a year into AWS, there's still the ability to receive some credits back into the customer account. That starts at the bottom of the slide there, for example, at 15% of ARR. And that rises. The larger the workloads, the more comprehensive the approach that you take to this, the more money is on the table from AWS. So that rises to about 25% in ARR and credits. And down the far right-hand side, you'll see some special pricing or strategic pricing incentives, as AWS like to refer to them. And the key one in the middle there, there's 50% of ARR there if that's an SAP or an Oracle application. There are further incentives around the VMware piece as well right now. That's a very hot topic in the market because of the dissatisfaction caused by some of the Broadcom changes. But it's more about the journey and understanding that AWS appreciate that there's going to be a period of dual running whilst you have this on-premise environment and you spin this up into the cloud and migrate the capability. And the purpose of the MAP funding journey is to provide funding to both the customer and to the partner. So, for example, during assess, there's up to $75,000 on the table from AWS to go towards and sometimes can cover the professional services that are needed. The same in the mobilize phase as well. There's another 20% there in partner professional services revenues of ARR that AWS put on the table. I think that should give you a flavor of the commitment AWS are serious about supporting the migration journey and will continue to provide incentives to both customers and partners to drive adoption here. Brian, back to you, sir. Or is it back to John? I apologize.
I think
Stuart.
For a couple of questions now, I think just for me, and that's a really powerful slide we put up there. And I think 75K is just for the assessment, and that will allow us, as a partner, to work with you on creating that business case, and you can see the other savings that are possible. John, do you want to?
Yeah, there's another question coming in here, guys, and I'm always a fan of practicality and use cases. Okay, and there's one here on that. Are there any industry-specific use cases or case studies of airlines that have successfully utilized this funding? You're on mute there, Ryan.
Yeah, just realized that as I spoke. Thanks, John. It's Friday afternoon. It's been a long week. But to answer the question, there is many airlines that have migrated successfully to the cloud. Obviously, AWS don't speak publicly about which airlines have received the funding, but the big ones that we know have moved to AWS are the likes of United Airlines in the States, Air Canada, Ryanair, EasyJet, to name a few in the European market, obviously Aer Lingus and British Airways. And they have all started where people are today on the call, either at the start using one OLA or proof of concept to trial something new out, or the big one, using MAP as a prescriptive guidance to move multiple workloads. And MAP can be applied to the big workloads, as Kevin said, like VMware or Oracle, or it can be a contact center migration to Amazon Connect off a traditional Avaya contact center. So there's no restriction, I suppose, John, to what we can move and what we can use the funding to move.
Yeah, and again, for me, this is the big item here, is that this is wide open in relation to how you want to deal with or move on your actual migration into AWS itself. Some of the migrations I've been involved with, they've really started to see the leveraging of AWS funding once they start to migrate in volume across into AWS itself. Now, there's not just a money issue associated to that. I think it's useful to maybe talk a little bit, and I can just bring this one up around that risk mitigation. One of the airlines that we've worked with used to have a lot of incidents associated with platforms going down, which ultimately cost revenue because planes aren't flying. Okay, and they had put that in at around 10 million a year of incidents avoidance just because they moved to AWS from on-prem platforms. That's 10 million a year, every year, over 3 years is what they suspected the savings would be, because platforms, highly scalable, highly redundant, and protected from a cybersecurity point of view in relation to that one. Stuart, back to you, buddy.
I think we're just about there. So just a little recap from me. So the main funding programs, as Kevin covered, 1 LA for developing a business case, POC funding up to $25,000 dollars for POC workloads, and then MAP and MAP Lite, so up to 75K for the migration assessment, 20% of ARR for mobilization services, and then 25% in credits for migration and modernization, plus additional funds for certain workloads, so those being VMware, SAP, and Oracle. We're a mock. We would love to talk to you further about it, help you in any way that we can. I'll pop a slide up with our contact details. Feel free to screenshot it, get in touch, and we're happy to talk to you on a one-to-one basis about how these funding programs can be applied. Other than that, just to say thank you for joining, and hopefully we will talk again to you soon.
Any other questions from the attendees at all? Now is your opportunity if you want to jump in.
I guess, John, I've one for you. How quick can we start an assessment?
Great question, Kevin. So at the moment, we're doing about 4 different assessments at the moment, and we always keep a reserve of about 25% to be able to support new assessments. Okay, so we do have people today that are ready to go for assessments. And if any queries come in after this particular webinar, we can get going Monday morning 9 a.m., Kevin.
Marvelous.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to wrap it up here. And just to let you know, we will be running another webinar at the end of May. And if people are interested in that, it is going to be around AI containment strategies. Okay, so that's going to be a hot topic. So if you want to keep an eye out for that on LinkedIn in relation to feeds, it's AI containment strategies. Okay, listen, thank you very much. All the best.
Thanks.